All right, let's kick off. We've got about 28 people in the audience, and again, just really excited to dive in. So, hello, everyone, and welcome. We are really looking forward to kicking off today our first AMA of 2025. This session's kind of designed to provide you some updates about the first 6 week of staking following the L1 token listing. So yeah, for anyone who's just kind of tuning in, for the first time in a while. One of the biggest launches that we just did, which the team was all hands on deck about, was obviously getting the L1 token live, kickstarting staking on the platform, and essentially getting the L1 economy up and running. This was kind of after our official mainnet launch in May 2024, where we kind of provided some early access to the mainnet network for our early community members. And yeah, I mean, last November was a really big push for us. It got us in front of a ton of people and kind of kicked off this new era. And yeah, we wanted to provide a recap. We're officially 6 weeks out from that. Team has been watching, obviously, the economics and community activities super closely, and using it as, as like a study of, what we need to be focusing on next, how we're going to be managing the L1 economy. So yeah, I mean, as I mentioned in one of our latest announcements here on Discord, we did reach some really promising and awesome milestones together. More than 50% of our circulating supply was staked as of 12/24 by over 2.5 thousand participants. So that was an awesome Christmas gift to us. And also, a lot of folks were pointing out that, APY-wise in the first couple of weeks of staking on the network were super high, right? That's obviously by design. We really wanted to reward folks who got in early and locked up their tokens and started kind of unlocking their LL1 and kind of reinvesting it back into the network. So we've been really pleased with that data so far. It's been awesome to kind of watch and keep track on. I think the foundation and the core team and the board and a bunch of folks have been really excited about that early activity. But amid all that excitement, obviously we've received a ton of questions and commentary from you all on a ton of stuff from token liquidity, staked supply, token issuance, the economic levers available to both us and the community to help support this emerging creator economy. So, I brought on Will Carter, our Chief Technology Officer, to kind of join me today to provide a quick staking recap and obviously also a look ahead at what we're going to be launching soon to help keep the community, the L1 economy, and of course the platform itself running. So Will, welcome. How's it going?
Good. I really cannot believe it's been 2 months since we did this last, but it is good to see all of you. And we haven't been sleeping the past 2 months. We did take, about a week and a half, 2 weeks off for the holidays. So that's why it's been particularly quiet the last couple weeks. And of course, the really sad events that are going on in LA right now. But we still have a lot of really exciting stuff cooking. Happy to talk about it today. And of course, it's great to see you all again.
Yeah, awesome. So yeah, I guess to kick off, my first question is just in general, Will, how's the Lamina1 team feeling about this staking launch and the early economic activity since the listing in late November 2024? What's your kind of health meter on this, and how do you think it's been going?
Yeah, I mean, I think all in all, we're really pleased with how the staking launch has gone, what the early economic indicators look like. This is essentially where we sort of thought we'd see ourselves. The percentage of circulating staked, it did go above 50%. The actual reality is it's actually quite a bit higher than that, given some of the quote unquote circulating supply that's shown in the hub is in fact held in reserves by the market makers. So the actual circulating supply is quite a bit higher than 50%. I think it's actually a little bit closer to 70%. And that's, I think, in our minds where we were hoping to see it. And then, yeah, I mean, it's been the holidays. We've seen a lot of I won't call it bear market runs, but like a lot of drops both in the crypto and stock markets in the past few weeks. So like all things considered, I'm happy with where we're at. I think everything's looking pretty healthy and in a great sort of place for us to begin announcing all of the exciting stuff we have here in Q1. So I think all in all, things look great.
Awesome. So yeah, I mean, like other than the circulating supply and the amount staked, like are there any other metrics that the team and the foundation are looking at most closely right now to kind of analyze that health and future of the L1 economy? Like, is there anything also that like the community might want to be keeping an eye on in addition? Like what stats are important to you?
Yeah, circulating supply is of course important. We tried to make that number in the hub as accurate as possible, but again, there's we sort of erred on the side of caution there by including stuff that's in the market maker accounts. Those aren't actually circulating. They're not necessarily available on the market right now, but they're also not locked up or held in reserve by the foundation. So circulating supply and percentage staked are both really good indicators to keep an eye out for. The percentage state that we're looking for, again, I think is probably around 70% in the early network. And so we're hoping to see it remain around there moving forward. And I think that number will become a little bit more reliable, the number that's shown in the hub, as more and more tokens become unlocked and the proportion of tokens held in reserve by market makers versus the amount of tokens that are actually in circulation widens a bit. Right now, they're actually fairly close to each other. Outside of those percentages, the foundation is looking at the unlock rate of LO1 and RL1. They're considering sort of the upcoming cliffs for investors and team members. So if you remember, investors have a 9-month cliff in which they can't touch tokens, and then they'll get LO1. Team members have at least a 12-month cliff, and then they'll get LO1. And that's all used to start getting like a high level multi-quarter view of what the circulating supply is going to look like. So that's something to keep in mind. I think in the latest governance paper, we released some circulating charts. If not, maybe we can share some. But that would be something to keep in mind, is like how the circulating supply is going to change over time. Finally, I think like another important indicator and parameter we look at is like the amount of time people are staking and the number of people that are staking. This is one thing. I think it was just about 2,000 last time I looked, number of people staking. I have seen some dashboard numbers on average time staked. It is generally very close to 10 years, which is frankly incredible. But the number of stakers I know is something the foundation would like to get up this quarter. Again, I think it's close to 2,000 at the moment, and I know they want to see that go quite a bit higher, and we'll talk a little bit about how we expect that could happen. But yeah, those are sort of the things I'm looking at when I take a look at the market, at least internally.
Yeah. Yeah, we've also kind of gotten a bunch of questions about like what are the sort of like system and economic levers kind of available to, the foundation, the core team, OMA, et cetera, to kind of help ensure the long-term health and prosperity. We've spoken, I know previously about, stuff like adjusting issuance rate, unlock rates, even like the staking multiplier, but I think, doing a quick recap on that might be a good idea here.
Yeah, for sure. So there are a couple levers. Some of them are sort of implicit, some of them are explicit. The RL1 issuance, I think, is a big one. So this is something that OMA has jurisdiction over. They can change the amount of RL1 that's issued each quarter. Just as a refresher, the amount of RL1 that's issued on a day-to-day basis is actually defined on a quarterly basis. And so that number can't change except between quarters. So for example, if it's set at the beginning, when it was set at the beginning of staking on day 0, that rate was locked for 90 days. And similarly, if we change it before the next quarter, that rate will be locked for the following 90 days. So the RO1 issuance is sort of a big one that they have control over. If like inflation were to become a problem in the future, I would say this is probably the most obvious lever to play with to slow down an increase in circulating supply. There's also sort of implicit triggers here that weren't necessarily built directly into that overall governance system, but like if you remember, we split the amount of RL1 issued in between three different buckets. We have stakers, creators, and ecosystem. We can modify sort of that share and that split to sort of push more rewards towards one group versus the other, again, within guardrails. So there isn't like massive shifts, but yeah, those are some of the things we can change, at least as far as like RL1 rewards issuance goes. Or I should say OMA can change. LO1 and RL1 unlocks the unlock rates are another one. And I know a lot of you are very familiar with this. There is some sensitivity in the communities, especially around how long the LO1 unlock rate is. There are really good reasons for it being exactly where it's at, but it is, of course, a parameter that can be adjusted by OMA moving forward. RL1, of course, already has a much shorter unlock rate comparatively, but it is similarly controlled by OMA. So these are both things that can be shifted to be faster or slower over time. Finally, there is, as you said, the staking multiplier. This is something that allows for us to sort of balance staking power at some point in the future. So you might think like, I don't know, a year or two from now, if there's like a big initiative that brings a lot of new people in, and we want to see those people stake, they've been at, you know, a 1 to 2 year disadvantage compared to all of the, you know, early supporters. And while that obviously we want to give benefits to the early supporters, that position that early supporters get can become kind of entrenched in that, like, you've had tokens staked for years, you've been getting rewards during those years. There isn't like a lot of incentive for new people to jump in and start staking because, you know, that those rewards can compound and they just can't be very competitive. So that is one thing that OMA could consider increasing over time to just sort of provide an incentive for new people to enter into the staking ecosystem. It's not something we sort of expect to see used in the short term, but yeah, it is just one more of those triggers.
Awesome. Yeah, Ed asked a question about this earlier this week, just being like, so that's under OMA jurisdiction, or is that like a team-controlled economic lever?
No, that's
so that's
expected to be
OMA?
under OMA. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right, we've also gotten just kind of questions about like liquidity, right? So something that I pulled out of one of our chats, apologies, I can't remember exactly who asked it, but asking, you know, why is there such little liquidity right now compared to the overall token supply? Like, is liquidity expected to go up as the LAMINA1 economy expands?
Yeah, 100%. Right now, like, there's an extremely low circulating supply. So like by definition, liquidity is naturally going to be pretty low as well. Liquidity is essentially just a metric for like how much of the token can you move in the market without dramatically changing the price, right? So if there aren't very many tokens in circulation, liquidity is naturally going to be fairly low. That doesn't necessarily mean you can't buy or sell the token if you need to, but it might mean there's like larger price movements when you do so. So when you look at that, obviously, as circulating supply increases over time, which I talked about a little earlier, you have the cliffs, you have the unlock rates. Naturally, circulating supply is going to increase over time. And so at least the supply side of liquidity will get better naturally. There is another aspect of circulating supply, which is, I guess, what you could call market demand, which is, you know, you want to sell some tokens or buy some tokens, like how much is actually available and being provided by the community. This is something that's affected sort of internally and even really externally by many factors. Like, I mean, we've seen the markets recently that, you know, the stock and crypto markets actually tend to move together, regardless of what's happening internally to the companies or the projects. And so that can affect demand. But at least internally, the things that we can control as a project, as a community, the things that drive demand are generally like how attractive and promising a place is it to launch new projects. And that's something that I know the foundation is primarily focused on in this quarter now that staking's been launched. But yeah, so yeah, liquidity is naturally low early on. That's expected. Circulating supply is going to increase naturally, and the foundation, now that we have some of this stuff launched and things are sort of moving on track and we're beginning to integrate partners, we're hoping that the ecosystem expands and it becomes a more attractive place for new projects to launch, and that'll drive up the demand side.
Yeah, and that's totally my jam. Obviously, I'm director of content and community. Like we've been focused so much on, getting the token launched, getting, our exchange partners up and running and, taking care of the economy. But 2025 is the year that like I am really personally looking forward to, launching some projects, like getting some community projects off the ground and funded and getting, a bunch of stuff. And we're obviously going to talk about that at the end of this AMA. But like, man, like, obviously 6 weeks ago we had the big economic launch. We've been watching it super closely, but, I've been sort of, especially like personally, been tasked with being like, all right, like now's the time for like content and experiences and stuff on LAMINA1, which like, oh, that's the fun, super exciting part. I know that there's a ton of folks in the community here in the AMA right now who I'm sure are really stoked about that too. So, I mean, back to the economy though, kind of related to, liquidity, token supply, getting a lot of questions just, every day about like, how can LAMINA1 community members kind of get access to more L1 to stake or trade on the network? Like if you weren't an airdrop recipient, you don't have LL1 unlocking on the network, which kind of gives you like a constant supply of L1. Like what's the best way to buy into the ecosystem now if you're new?
If you're new, Mexi and Gate are the official exchanges at the moment. So that's where you would go. I don't believe they support US citizens at the moment, but if you're not a US citizen, that's the place to get L1 tokens.
Yep. And that leads right into my next question, which is obviously getting a ton of questions about like, does the team have any plans to make the L1 token more accessible in 2025? For example, launching on a DEX or another exchange that is in fact available in the United States or other countries not supported by Gate or Mexi?
Yes, at least on the tech team side, we're ready to support the first DEX trading pair on the Avalanche C chain. We're just waiting on the foundation to get everything sort of organized around market making and initial liquidity for that. We've already developed a native bridge that'll facilitate that. I know we've got quite a few top testers in this AMA. They've already tested that bridge. That'll be a native bridge between the LAMINA1 network and the Avalanche C chain. And so that'll enable us to basically launch trading pairs on any of the DEXs, or even technically exchanges on the Avalanche C chain. So we do expect to see DEX go live here very, very soon. Again, everything's ready technically. We're just sort of putting the last finishing touches on the launch around that. So yeah, I'd expect to hear about that very soon. I know the foundation is working on further listings as well, or exploring other exchanges. I can't speak to any of that myself, but I do know that other exchanges are being looked at.
Yeah, and I'll definitely let you guys all know as soon as I get the green light from the foundation and everyone else as soon as we're live. But yeah, there's been a lot of movement. Obviously, things slowed down a little bit over the holiday in terms of the negotiations. But yeah, expect something really quick. I probably follow up with the team about it in like every single one of our internal meetings, being like, when are we launching this, guys? All right. So next question I have in my list is about kind of like staking APYs. So I mentioned earlier in the AMA that staking APYs were like absurdly high in the beginning. We've had a bunch of folks be like, oh man, like they've gone down like significantly since the early days. So I'd love to dive in with you, Will, just about like, what's the relationship between like time staked and earning potential, and like how quickly will earning potential continue to go down as kind of staking continues on the network? Like, can you explain how those APYs work a little bit more deeply?
Yeah, the APY calculation is actually pretty straightforward. It's based on two factors. One is your staking power. Your staking power, if you played with the tool, is basically based on how much you're staking and how long you're staking, and it's a proportional linear calculation. So if you stake one token for 10 days, you get 10 staking power. If you stake 10 tokens for one day, you still get 10 staking power. So APY is going to be based on your staking power for one, which is relative to the amount of staking power in the network as a whole. As that amount goes up, the APY will naturally drop because you're spreading the rewards across more staking power. The other factor there is RL1 issuance, which I mentioned a little bit earlier. RL1 issuance has not changed over the first 90 days, so it remains the same day to day. And so the APY drop we're seeing right now is basically because more people are entering into the staking economy. So more people are staking tokens, which means the APY is dropping. The APY is not a promise for future yield. It's basically a metric that shows, given the current system and their current numbers, if they didn't change, what would the API be in that moment? But again, like we expect staking to increase over time, and so that APY will change over time as well. It has dropped. It was always known to drop. It was supposed to be really high early on, just to sort of give a little bit back to the early supporters and early community members who did have access to some L1 tokens. They were able to sort of participate in a high yield phase of the network. I would say, like, even now, yes, they've dropped a lot, but they're still like insanely high compared to basically any other project I've seen in crypto. So I would expect them to continue to drop over time. But I don't know, take advantage of them while they are high, because as more people stake, they will drop naturally.
Definitely. And as someone who's currently unable to stake on the network, I'm looking at you all jealously about those APYs 100%. So I've got a couple more questions now. So obviously staking is launched, economy launched, token is live, and kind of our next step per the L1 governance paper obviously is voting, right? So we said voting per that paper is going to start rolling out kind of 90 days following the launch of the L1 token, which is kind of end of February 2025. So the team has been working super hard. Like even over the break, I think we had like 3 internal working sessions where we really started hashing out, a plan to present to the foundation on like how voting was going to work on LAMINA1, the sort of like early, our kind of first community seat for OMA elections is actually going to come up. That's going to be the first thing that we're going to be voting on together. So, I mean, first question kind of related to that update is for you, Will, is like when voting does roll out on the LAMINA1 platform in Q1 2025, kind of at the end of February is when it's currently positioned, how will current stake tokens and activity kind of factor into the equation? We talk about this a little bit in the white paper, but just kind of to verbally go over it, like how does stake power and like participation on the network, how is that going to convert to voting power when that functionality rolls out?
Yeah, so it's expected to essentially be proportional to the amount of stake power you have initially. So, for example, I'm not saying it's going to be 1-to-1, but it will be proportional. But let's say it was 1-to-1. Then for every stake token you have, and I think you can see your stake balance in the hub, you'll get 1 vote token. And so that'll be both retroactive and moving forward. So if you have been staking up until the date of vote launch, we will airdrop you vote tokens based on that stake amount. And then if you stake after the fact, then you'll receive those vote tokens as you stake. So that'll be the primary way in which we distribute vote tokens initially.
Awesome. And can anyone vote on the LAMINA1 network, or is it just folks who participate in staking? Got that question, and I was like, oh, we should definitely address this in the AMA.
Yeah, at least in the first phase, it is only going to be people who are staking. We've mentioned in previous AMAs that in the future we would like to expand to include other mechanisms and ways to earn vote tokens that aren't strictly economic in nature.
Mhm.
So this might include or reflect a user's usage of the platform or influence within the platform. So when we think about the hub and some of the new features coming out, maybe that might be like the amount of gas used in a quarter, or
Mhm.
some other type of usage analytics in the hub, or similar to the way we do airdrops, where we take like a broad view of all of the usage activity in the network and then reward people based off of it. We might take an approach like that. Um, with all of these, in the same way that we struggled with this and every project struggles with this, we want to make it fair. We don't want to reward sort of artificial farming behavior. So we won't have that aspect of awarding vote initially because we want to work some of that out, make sure it's safe and secure and fair. But yeah, we are looking for new ways to give voting power to people outside of just staking.
Awesome. Yeah, that's super interesting and exciting. So, I mean, in general, also, we've been getting a lot of questions about like when can the community expect like more updates or info about how voting is going to work on Lamina One. I'll take the first part of this question just to kind of give you guys a preview on like what my plans are for this, and then maybe you can follow up a little bit. But I think actually this week I'm working on kind of just like a general kind of like governance education week for us all that I'm hoping will kick off in the middle of next week. Just kind of to overview, blockchain governance, some of the different models that the team has been looking at and considering. And actually, honestly, like later today, Will and I are presenting like our kind of final voting one pager to the foundation and the rest of the team for approval. And we're going to see like parts of that plan if we can kind of preview that some of those like big things to you guys like during that week and also I'm going to be launching kind of an incentivized survey where we kind of pull some ideas and feedback and input from you all so that while we're finalizing the plan and building the sort of like um final contracts and UI for that, that we make sure that your voices are heard within that. So definitely expect that to come out again in the middle of next week. I'll have like a blog post, I'll have a survey for you all. We'll probably do another AMA. But yeah, that's when like I'd say starting next week is when we're going to start kind of slowly dropping info on how voting is going to work on the platform. Will, do you have any sort of like other sort of updates regarding the rollout that you want to share, or is it still kind of TBD at this point?
Not necessarily. I mean, as you said, like we've been working on it even over the break. We have like the initial versions sort of ready to present to the OMF for approval. We're already looking at trying to bring in some of like the initial phase is really only expected to cover election of a new OMA seat, but we're looking at ways to bring forward other aspects of governance, voting on specific proposals, stuff like that, a little quicker,
Yeah.
using some external integrations. So yeah, I mean it's a primary focus of the engineering team at the moment, and yeah, very soon we hope to have a proposal at least in front of the community to provide some feedback.
Yeah, awesome. And yeah, I guess like what are some other feature or platform priorities the Lamina1 core team is working on as we look forward to 2025? So obviously we've talked about, the launch of voting and DEX listings have been kind of top of mind as well as that token bridge, but anything else that you kind of wanted to share that has been going on in the background, Will?
Yeah, we have a million things going on. So, like one of the big things we've been working on, and which has made a lot of progress, we've got working prototypes up and running, and I think will help a lot with people who are building on the network, is working on becoming a Wallet Connect provider. So,
Mhm.
as a lot of currently we basically use Web3 auth as our primary onboarding mechanism. But you can't currently use that same onboarding mechanism. Say if you were making an external website and you wanted to allow someone to log in with their Lamina1 hub account, they can't do that at the moment. So we're working on becoming a Wallet Connect provider, which will allow us to give any developer or project essentially a little library that's they can use to bring users from the hub onto their website and have access to their wallet, have access to their assets, be able to trade, transfer, do all that fun stuff. And so that's a big thing we've been working on that'll enable some of the partners we've been waiting on integrating. Integrating partners is another big thing we're working on. Launching a new product called Spaces, which I think we'll probably be ready to talk a little bit about pretty soon. Working on stuff around some of Neil's ideas. We talked about voting and DEX stuff. That's all upcoming. It's something we've been working on. Social functionality within the hub, being able to, that'll be something that fits into Spaces, which again is something we'll tease in a little bit. We're migrating the AWM community over from the Kaya chain over to the Lamina1 chain. There are about 500,000 token holders on the Kaya chain that will be migrating over. So those will all be Lamina1 users now. So we're working on that migration with the AWM team. That's the Another World team, the merger, if you haven't been tracking kind of recent events. And then marketplace functionality is another big sort of feature that we've been working pretty hard on. And I think we'll have, hopefully, fingers crossed, some exciting news about that soon.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, all of the super early auctions that you guys have been hosting has been super exciting. But yeah, I keep being like, guys, like we've already got these sort of like Discord marketplaces happening behind the scenes. But yeah, kind of bringing that on to the forefront in the hub is another big thing that we've been working on. So, and Alchemist, I saw your question kind of above about Artifact, and once we get into the open Q&A section, I can provide you a little bit of an update on that. Have also been kind of like using the Christmas break to really dive in to that, which is really exciting as well. But yeah, I think actually, yeah, let's dive into some of the community questions. I've been pulling them from the chat as we go. So just kind of starting chronologically, John Mark kind of asked, kind of going back to our conversation about cliffs for investors and team members, like, do we actually have like actual dates for the 9-month and 12-month unlocks? Like, what are those? Obviously, I'm sure some folks are going to mark those on their calendars because those are going to be pretty big days for the L1 economy. But do we have like exact? I mean, 12 months is easy. It's November 24th, 2025, right? Is when ours
Right.
unlock. And then the investors, 9 months puts us in the summer, right? Is that July, August?
Yeah, so I don't have exact dates for you. I will say, like, I believe, if I remember correctly, that the definition of a quarter is 365 divided by 4. So 91 point, what is that, 91.5 or something, 91.25 days in a quarter. And so I think the vesting schedule is technically done in that time frame. And so you can add 3 times 91.25 to the initial launch date of November 24th. And that should be the date in which at least the first cliff comes up. But I'll provide an exact date. I'll take a look at the contracts and let you know exactly when those are going to unlock.
Awesome. Sana asks, regarding the RL1 and LO1 unlock date. So like, when is it, another math question for you, Will, but like, when can we claim like 100% of our rewards, like per the current unlock rate, I guess?
Yeah, it's again, the unlock rate for LO1, as you know, is 5% per quarter. So that's about 20% per year. If it did not change, then they would unlock all of the LO1 in the network would unlock in 5 years.
Yeah.
The RL1 unlock rate is currently 10% per quarter, and so it'll be half of that. All of the RL1 in the network will unlock in 2.5 years. if nothing else changes. So that would be those levers we talked about that OMA can modify over time.
Yeah, totally. And just like as a recap in terms of like the unlock rate like changes, like yes, those are changeable. If you look at the latest version of the governance white paper, there are some sort of like unlock guidelines that we do have put in place in the governance white paper that kind of show like how much like can we move those a quarter, right? So, for example, like unlock rates, we can't just like immediately change them to like 0 and unlock them. Like there's a rule number 4 says RL1 and LL1 shall not adjust more than 1.5% from the previous quarter. So, obviously like even if, you guys end up electing, a community member who, gets elected based on a platform of really wanting to get unlock rates faster for the community, there are limits to how quickly that they can do that. And I feel like that's like super important to remind us of. Like, there's not going to
Yeah.
be, a situation where just everything unlocks one day for everyone. Like, it's going to be kind of gradual by design, right? We
Right.
want to maintain the value of the economy, right? Um, all right, Alchemist19, you asked any news on Neil's project. It would really help if we had the space to create something epic here at Lamina1. So yes. So Artifact is just to give like a little progress report on that project. We are still poised to launch Q1 2025. We basically did an initial concept art phase with Weta where they helped us. We worked with Neil and What a Workshop, and we got sort of like the core of the narrative kind of set up. They provided some really awesome concept art that I cannot wait to share with you guys on like what the initial kind of like creative is going to be for the project, what the initial kind of like story is. A bunch of it's actually going to be kind of like based and subliminally calling out a bunch of Neil's past work and IP. So it's going to kind of be like an Easter egg hunt for Neil fans. Neil's super excited about it. The word artifact came from Neil himself. He really likes this idea of, using art is the idea of like creativity on the chain, and then fact is kind of like the proof within it. And so we're doing a lot of like really interesting work with him, kind of building that out. And basically we finished that sort of initial concept art and creative phase with them at the end of 2024. And then for the last 4 weeks, I've actually been working with a game designer that we met at the Avalanche Summit this November, to basically turn those initial creative concepts into a core game loop, really diving into the mathematics and game design behind the game. So that's actually closing out tomorrow. We had a really good presentation with the board and the foundation last week, kind of sharing them the kind of ins and outs of that game. But just as like a little bit of a preview, it's going to kind of initially launch as an NFT collection on Lamina1. We're going to be launching kind of the first space that goes live on Lamina1 is going to be the artifact space that's going to be run by us, Weta and Neil. It's going to be sort of this like NFT drop. There's going to be a lot of mystery, and then it's basically going to grow from there. So basically, there's going to be, an initial kind of space. Everyone's going to be able to kind of like collect these interesting artifacts. What are they? There's going to be some puzzles and stuff that we're hoping you guys will sort out, and then eventually that's going to grow into a series of mini games and then co-creation opportunities. And we're already planning some game jam stuff, and the idea is that like we want to launch this thing and like kind of introduce you all to the story world, and then very quickly after that have a situation where like you all really have ownership and the ability to kind of take this core rule set and this core like kind of game engine dynamic and use it to power your own offshoot experiences, your own story worlds and narratives, even fuel your own mini games and stuff like that. we've been watching obviously Persona Collective super closely, which is one of our other founders projects, Peter DeSenis. And, we've seen how you guys have really taken that experience and built like a world around it and all of these different factions and like, the Hive City. And so we're kind of leaning into, enabling you guys the freedom and ability to kind of build off of Neil's work as well. So right now, that kind of initial drop, if everything goes according to plan, is poised for like early March 2025, which I know is a little bit later than we initially said. But again, it's been super exciting, especially like getting a game designer into the equation has been amazing. Like we're starting to get the math kind of set, and there's going to be hidden metadata and all sorts of really cool stuff. So that's the preview. In a little bit, actually, kind of like we've been getting some questions about like what's next for the L1 early access channel. So I'm gonna have Neil and hopefully Weta on for kind of like another sneak preview AMA soon, where they can kind of dive deep, and maybe we can share you guys some initial concept art and that kind of stuff as we dive in. But yeah, it's like I'm super excited to share that with you all. That's like gonna be a big marquee launch that we're really excited about launching. Um, this year, and has been taking up a ton of my time, and again is super exciting. So that's your preview. I probably revealed more than I should have, but that's what these AMAs are for. All right, back to the nitty gritty. In voting, Squid asked, can vote power or anything be like partially delegated, like, or is that not on the table quite yet?
Yeah, that's something we're definitely looking at putting into the vote token, the ability to delegate. Currently, it's expected. I can't say for sure whether or not delegation will be there in the first iteration of the vote token. It will be an upgradable contract, but delegation is something we're exploring for the vote token. So can't give you a concrete answer about when or if delegation will be there, but it is something we're considering.
Yeah, as with a lot of things on LAMINA1, we like to roll things out in phases. So, voting will probably start out pretty simple, focused on OMA elections, and then kind of expand from there based on delegation. And then, as Will mentioned, community proposals, voting for funding, that kind of stuff. So it'll roll out kind of gradually as, the network matures and we get more creators on here. Ed has a question. Currently, the hub doesn't have any way for users to confirm or reject transactions. Like, if the hub is providing a wallet to a third-party site, this is kind of following up from your Wallet Connect update. Does that site have similar carte blanche to perform transactions without confirmation? Very specific
No, it does
question.
not. And that's actually why it's taken us so long to sort of provide this functionality. Basically, people able to log in with the LAMINA1 ID. They could have technically done that with Web3 auth. If we were to provide our Web3 auth client ID, we could have just opened it up so that anyone could log in with their hub account to any other website. But that would have essentially allowed that website to perform any transaction they want without user approval on the back end, which could lead to like malicious web apps that essentially drain your wallet. They look cool and you log in and then all your tokens are gone. So that's obviously not something we want. When you use the sort of Wallet Connect flow, it will essentially create a link between the hub and your external account. And if a transaction is initiated on that external app, it'll be very similar to MetaMask. It'll ask you if you want to confirm that transaction or not. So it should be a very similar flow to MetaMask actually, but if you have a social login and you don't use MetaMask, then this will be another way to provide that functionality to you and allow you to log into other projects and web apps.
Awesome. KLO asks, can you talk about other projects launching soon on LAMINA1? Hint, Haiku. So this is kind of a sneak peek, but I guess yeah, I mean, we definitely, it's hard for me to talk about partnerships because until we have like the ink signed. Like, it's generally my directive to like not announce things until we're ready to publicly announce them. But yeah, we do have a bunch of projects that our head of partnerships is currently working on. One of them is this project called Haiku. That's kind of this on-chain poetry project where you can generate really interesting AI poems on chain. I think we're kind of in the end stages of kind of finalizing that launch. We're working right now with an unnamed as of yet film partner that is thinking of doing some really interesting things in terms of like video and film on chain that we're excited to announce in the coming weeks. And then I think in general, I mean, I've gotten a bunch of really awesome proposals from you guys in the community that I forwarded in a big sort of compilation email to the foundation last week. Wolfamon, the Lamster blockchain game, Lamster DAO, the Lamb Chunks proposal. Frankly, Cryptoversal, you're going wild right now, and a lot of your projects sound really exciting and super interesting. Obviously, Ed, you've been working on a ton of really interesting stuff in Erasmus, splatter party updates, and you're a year into development on that. So we're really looking forward. I'm kind of pushing to see like what's our next phase and helping to support a lot of the community projects that you guys are working on. I don't know, like, Will, are we allowed to say anything else? I'm a little bit like this question makes me a little bit wary, but is there any other sneak
I say,
previews we
yeah.
can have? Yeah,
I'd say err on the side of caution here. Yeah,
totally.
I think Rebecca explained this once, but if we release too much of a sneak peek, then it's hard for us to get like press coverage on some of these, which is really
Sure.
important for getting new people excited and aware of the platform. So I think that's about as far as we can go. But hopefully it was a good sneak peek.
Yeah, right. And again, like definitely keep an eye out. We'll make the big announcements. We're obviously like every time we make these big partnership announcements, we try to give it as many legs as possible because these big project announcements are what are going to obviously attract more community members. It's gonna, help pump the economy for us creators and stuff like that. So, a big focus of ours is just kind of like getting these partnerships launched and announced so that we can start fueling, more kind of creative based excitement around the chain and the project. A rising tide raises all ships. So we're really excited to get those announcements out this year. This is definitely going to be a big year for kind of partnerships and project launches. So again, really excited to be in this phase of the project, right? Yeah. Anyway, anything else, Will, that you wanted to provide an update on before we hop off or anything else? Yeah, I think, as always, probably revealed a little bit more information than I probably should have here.
No, I think it was good. I think it was good. Nothing else on our end. I think I've given you guys a pretty good look at everything we've been working on in terms of features. I read someone wants a roadmap, and he's right. Engineers hate
Yeah.
roadmaps. So I'm not going to give you dates on anything other than to say everything I talked about is like well under development and hopefully coming out pretty soon. Those are all basically sort of our priorities for Q1. I'll say like there has been a lot of conversation around the notion of AI and how it can be used in co-creation.
Mhm.
So we do have a lot of really cool creators on this platform, and so one of our visions for Lamina1 has always been like, cool, you have the creative, but then you have the community around the creative, and how can we like deepen and enrich the engagement between the creative and their fans? And so we are looking at some really cool ways to leverage AI to do that, which is to basically allow co-creation where the community, even though they're not maybe particularly artistically gifted, can still sort of participate in the development of the IP and the story world and enrich the community and all that fun stuff. So that's all stuff that we're also looking to bring into the fold here in Q1 and Q2 as well.
Yeah, I had actually a really interesting call with Rebecca yesterday where we were jamming about like, okay, obviously like AI and the metaverse are kind of like becoming more intertwined, but it's like, what are some really interesting and cool ways that we can, integrate some AI tools into the platform that still kind of align with, creator values and Neil's values and, the idea that like, we want to give people the opportunity to create alongside their favorite creators and IP, but also you want to give creators, the ability to kind of control that quality and, maintain really high quality storytelling, which, obviously AI has its issues with. So obviously a lot of really interesting projects on that front. We've experimented a little bit in the past. Obviously, you guys know Forecast, which is rebranded to Wider Worlds. We did a bunch of early testing with them on, kind of building prompts and stuff around that. So definitely look forward to some more interesting experiments and stuff around that. Yeah, super interesting. So yeah. Yeah, it's thank you guys all so much. I think we're gonna cut it off from now. Again, we're super busy. We've got a lot of promises to deliver in Q1 2025. So hope this was informative session. Reassures you that yes, we are alive, we are working super hard, and gives you a better idea of where we're at and where we're headed in 2025. As always, stay tuned here on Discord, on the Telegram, and on the LAMINA1 X or Blue Sky if you left Twitter. Recently, we just started up a Blue Sky that, I've been posting on pretty frequently. We've got a small community, but it's growing. And if you haven't yet already, start staking. Help us grow, amplify the community. Let's keep building together. If you are launching projects on chain that you want us to know about or want me to forward to the foundation for, upcoming grants or anything like that, definitely hit me up in project launches. I love to see what you guys are creating. And, all of this early activity is amazing. You guys are great. Um, Thank you all so much. And thanks so much for hopping on, Will. This was great.
Yeah, of course. It was good to see you all again. And I think we'll probably be doing these probably back to a fairly regular schedule, right? Here now that
Yep.
we've gotten past the new year.
Yeah, I want to do bi-weekly. So yeah, definitely stay tuned. I guess the next one's probably going to be about governance and voting. And then following that, actually, I want to actually do we did an AI week last year, and I want to kind of revisit it. So much has changed in the last year around that. So we're going to dive into that together as well. And then obviously the launch of voting and Artifact and everything will be quickly launching after that. So yeah, good to see you guys. See you in a little bit, and in the meantime, see you guys all on the feeds. All right, take care, Will.
Hi,
Talk
everyone.
to you guys later. Bye.
Bye.